Hey guys, Mathel here once again, and as PoE2 is approaching, it almost a little bit sad, feels like an end of an era of Path of Exile 1, and it's a video I kind of wanted to make for a little while now, and no better time. The kind of most iconic builds that I have ever put out there and played for myself from all of Path of Exile 1. Now, I have made a lot of builds over the time, so we're talking 15 to 20 builds every league for something like 40 leagues. So you can imagine that is hundreds and hundreds of builds, and I can maybe narrow it down to 10 to 15 builds that were truly iconic for me. And when I say that, I mean kind of like meta changing, or you could really think back and see that build, what it did for the game or the league at the time from my point of view. And it was a truly next level build for or concept for the time, and also just for the game itself. So there's going to be some that are left out. This is just off the top of my head. Maybe you've got your own ideas as to what was like kind of iconic on my channel and what I did. But with that, it's going to be a bit of a long video, I think, and I'm going to talk a couple minutes about on each build and hopefully give a bit of history as to how it came about and what was going on at the time. So it should be a bit of a fun video. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. And with that, I will start with Cyclone Chieftain. This was supposed to be a starter build. First of all, let me just get it right out of the way. Yeah, the quality is going to be terrible on most of these because these are old videos. And for some of them, I had like terrible recording quality and stuff. Either way, there we go. That's done. Cyclone Chieftain. This was something that came about as a starter build for one of the leagues several years ago, and it was one of the best starters I ever did, pretty much ever. It was a concept of smashing Chieftain together with Cyclone and Shockwave using staves, which were not very popular at the time at all. Neither was Cyclone and Shockwave. That was kind of something I put together and will take full credit for. But Chieftain itself was used to go full fire, use Namahu's extra fire rotational damage buff to give yourself a lot more damage. And primarily, the big part of this build was utilizing the totems and the totem buffs, which pretty much no one was doing at the time as well. So we figured out that you could use both Ancestral Protector and Ancestral Warchief at the same time. The Chieftain had some really powerful buff nodes. I'd also spec into Panopticon. Pretty much no one was doing that either. And then when our totems were down, we'd have a huge extra amount of damage. And what was a build that had really good clear could also have really good single target. It was very budget. You didn't really need almost anything to get started on this thing, and it took everyone pretty damn far. So it really resonated with people because it was a Cyclone build. People love spin to win. It was very effective. It was fun. It was budget friendly. It was easy to understand. And it was one of my most popular starters pretty much ever. Pretty much worked better than most that I'd ever done, and then also very popular. And people wanted me to keep bringing it back league after league, year after year. Problem was that Cyclone got kind of worse, Chieftain got kind of worse, Staves got kind of outpaced. So in the end, like, yeah, it just kind of faded away, and it's not really much of a thing anymore. You certainly still can do some Cyclone Shockwave action, but you're not going to get as much bang for your buck as you did back in the day. So this one, yeah, not too much of a thing anymore, but it was huge for its time and truly some absolutely next level shit. Next one I'd like to bring up is Ice Nova Assassin. Now this build was about 5 years ago at this point, and it was during the Flashback Synthesis race. It was solo self-found hardcore, and veterans of this stream will look fondly back to this build because it was rank 3 ass, almost rank 2 ass. So back in this day, I was playing Ice Nova fairly often because I liked it a lot. I liked the combo of Frostbolt plus Ice Nova. Not really many people did, and I tried to popularize it and make it quite a build, and it took off for me and really felt nice to throw out some Frostbolts, have some real effective damage of Ice Nova. I enjoyed the 1-2 step process of this whole thing, and I fell in love with that sort of thing, and I did it several times. When the race for 1 month hardcore solo self-found sort of flashback event happened, there was on offer 3 prizes, I think it was 3 demigod prizes per ascendancy for the top 3, and I really wanted to grab one of those as an assassin, because not many people were playing assassin, and then also as Ice Nova. The problem was, at the time, Winter Orb was basically the most overpowered thing the game has almost ever seen as far as a ease of use for all ascendancies out there, and that's what I had to compete with. Winter Orb was taking the top, let's say, 50 ascendancy spots of every single ascendancy during that race, except for me, an Assassin Ice Nova build. So if you looked at the top 50 of Assassin, it was basically all Winter Orbs. If you looked at Slayers, it was Winter Orbs. If you looked at Pathfinders, Winter Orbs. Everyone was just Winter Orbing. And then I, against all odds, with my Ice Nova Assassin, got to rank 3 at level 99 and claimed a demigods that way with Ice Nova, playing full ethical build. I love Ice Nova. It was one of my favorites for a long time because it's very punchy, it freezes, it's very defensive if you want it to be, and it just felt good for the time. It really did start to kind of drop off after a while because a 2-step process build just wasn't really that worth it in the speed of the game as things got speedier and more difficult. But it can be kind of brought back these days, of course, with Archmage, as you can have a very thick character while doing this type of thing. So yeah, this ended up giving me rank 3, a few demigod things, and a lot of fun. And it was during Synthesis League, so that was about 5 years ago. And it was just, yeah, one of my like kind of fondest builds and memories of getting level 99 on SSF HC, which is the highest level I've ever had. Level 97 is otherwise my highest, and that was on softcore, or maybe hardcore as well. Yeah, this is the biggest character I've basically ever done or taken through the game up to that point. We are once again going pretty old school, and this is 6 or 7 years ago, and that is The Boys. I think it was Incursion League, yeah. So basically what happened is The Boys is Vaal Double Strike, and it came about as Vaal Double Strike showed up one day. You know, we got Vaal skills, and then Double Strike existed as a Vaal version. And I tried it out, and basically you'd have Double Strike, and then you'd summon an extra couple of clones of yourself that would show up and also fuck shit up. And I coined that as basically calling in the boys to help you out. And ever since then, it was called The Boys, and it refers to Vaal Double Strike. It was a build I put together as a starter build for the Incursion League. Playtested it myself as as my starter, and it really went hard. It was super fun to jump around with a fast strikey playstyle. It was super fun to press the Vaal button and call in the boys, and it was very powerful on a very low budget. So this one was another fan favorite that resonated with a lot of people, and years later, almost every league I get asked to bring back the boys and do the boys, do Vaal Double Strike action, and I have done many iterations of Double Strike since then, and it's still a very good skill and still one of my favorites as far as melee strike skills are concerned, and I've built it in many different ways since then as well. Pressing Vaal Double Strike is still one of the nicer buttons in the game for additional single target, and still very powerful and worth doing. So this one hasn't really fallen off too much. It's just not the best starter compared to, you know, lots of other things that can take you much faster and further, but it's still a very nice starter, still a very nice overall end game build if you want to take it to very different ways. And it was, yeah, just one of my more popular starters to begin with, and still to date. So The Boys Double Strike, absolutely huge build, and yeah, still good to this day. Now, most of my iconic builds are kind of from a long time ago because I'm washed up and not really too relevant these days. But one of the more iconic I'm gonna include in modern times is one that happened this past league, and that is Viper Strike of Mamba. This is one of those builds that actually really went very far in my channel and in my community and stuff, and pretty much everyone wanted to give it a shot because it looked really insane and it truly was next level. So Viper Strike of the Mamba is one that I didn't really create. Some people did play it, you know, a league or two ago and tried it out, but it went to a whole nother level thanks to Perfect Agony this league. And then I had my own version of it and really did popularize it quite well with the Bino's interaction of Prolif and as a trickster. basically, Viper Strike with the Mamba is a Viper Strike build that utilizes huge amounts of extra damage on a non-poisoned enemy. You then only really need to stab once, and that's all it takes. You stab an enemy one time, you walk away, and you deal basically dot cap damage against anything you're going to attack. And it created one of the smoothest playstyles I've ever had for both clear and for single target. And it was an absolute joy to play up to level 97, which for me during a league is pretty much unheard of to take a character that far. So it was one of the funnest builds I'd played pretty much ever, and especially during that league. And it was also one of the strongest. And Viper Strike of the Mamba still very playable right now. Nothing's really changed since then. And definitely something that pretty much everyone should experience at some point in their life, because it's a very unique playstyle and it is very satisfying and pays off quite large when put together well enough. The next one on my list is going to be what I think was one of the first big uses of Replica Alberon boots, and that was a Poison Assassin Wander. So when Replica Alberon boots first hit the market, I should kind of preface this. A lot of these builds just seem super obvious at the, after the fact and in modern times. But at the time when nothing's been done and when not that much testing has happened, when until it's obvious, it's not obvious. So why I'm saying this is because when Replica Alberon boots first came out, no one was really using them. They were pretty slept on. They weren't very popular. I then got around to finally looking at them and thinking, yeah, I think I should give those a go because they seem pretty damn OP. And I made one of the strongest builds I'd ever made back then, which was a strength stacking Poison Assassin Wander. So we had Kinetic Blast for lots of AoE clear. We had Power Siphon with Barrage for single target damage. And because we're a strength stack assassin, we had a lot of base life to then have life off of, and basically made what was, by that point, I think, my first ever actual thick Wander. So it was a Wander that had some real backing behind it, some good life and thickness, because we could have Fortify, I think, with Shield Charge. And we had really good damage, probably dot cap, I think. We had pretty good recovery, and it proved that Replica Alberons were actually truly busted. And then after that, they pretty much just went to the moon every single league for price, just based off of how strong they were for almost any skill, because it was proven here that you could do Replica Alberon, strength stack, plus pretty much any attack-based skill and have an insane build. They still, to this day, are one of the most overpowered items out there, even after taking a nerf. And this was one of those that a lot of people did copy, a lot of people did play, and it's kind of iconic for me because I think from my memory, it put Replica Alberons on the scene, and let a lot of people loose with this sort of overpowered item. And it was one of the strongest Wanders I'd ever played, and one of the most well-rounded characters I think I'd ever done at that point. And once again, an assassin, which is always nice to see. It's also nice to see Old Beyond in the background here. That was really fun, especially when you had an overpowered build. You just spawn a lot of extra mobs, a lot of extra bosses, and it really let you test your build to the maximum, and then utilize mass farming like never before. So a bit sad to see the Old Beyond go, but still nice to look back on it and see just how fun it was. Next one I want to showcase is once again something I think I had a large hand in popularizing, and that is Shockwave totems. It is what at that time, and still probably to this day, the strongest totem build and skill I'd ever tried. What Shockwave totems are some totems you place. They are a built-in totem, so just an actual skill by itself. It's totems you place, and then they just target something with Shockwave. Essentially, the difference is that to begin with, as a skill, it just does an AoE Shockwave around itself, but when combined with the Astral Projector Ring, which is what we did, you can target those Shockwaves anywhere on the screen, or even in some cases off screen. So it was a totem build that ended up being super comfortable to play, because you'd place totems and it would automatically target whatever needed targeting on the screen, off screen, whatever, and it was really powerful because of that. It ended up being an insanely high damage dealer for the time, because I think I had, 30 to 50 million DPS while having a totem playstyle, which is super defensive, and it took down all of my Uber bosses, or I think we were doing Ubers at the time, took down all of the end game bosses, and became just one of the most successful builds I'd had up to that point. The mapping was really nice. The single target was really nice. It wasn't super hard to put together, and it was one of the first like kind of uses that anyone had ever seen of Shockwave Totem at that time to this level. I can't take full credit for it. It was one of my viewers, some dumbass called Proto555, that was like saying, oh, you got to try Shockwave Totem, it's great. And then I made my own version of it, of course, and it really did transcend kind of my channel in the end, because it became a huge Sanctum farmer once Sanctum came into play. So this is before Sanctum. We made this one and it was really good, but once Sanctum showed up, it was shown off as one of the better builds that could have huge damage, have huge good tracking damage, and then a defensive playstyle at the same time. So Shockwave Totem to this day still very good. It's just, you know, it's a little bit bland in its visual, so it has that going against it, but still a very powerful build, still something you can do to this day, and still probably one of the best totem things to currently exist or have ever existed. For this one, we are delving pretty damn old school indeed, and that is Dreamfeather Spectral Throw. For those unfamiliar with Dreamfeather, it is an item that scales damage based off of evasion rating, and this is 8 years ago now, back when I was in my old place. Basically, no one had ever really used it and stacked enough evasion to make good use of it, or comboed it with anything to make it useful, and Dreamfeather was an item absolutely no one used or made real builds with. I had some good success with Spectral Throw up to that point, and decided to make kind of a meme version where I wanted to attack with 2 different colored swords, but there was some legs behind it because I put some poison attached to it, I scaled a lot of evasion, and then tried to make a pretty zappy, fast character. And the result was actually pretty amazing. It was a character that had really good damage on absolute budget because they were 1C like weapons. You get a bunch of evasion, so you were pretty tanky, and then it could take on, with its playstyle, all of the end game that was available at that time, which was pretty unheard of for too many builds. So it actually ended up being build of the week for one of those weeks, because there was a series where GGG would highlight certain builds from community and call it build of the week and then go over it, and it was probably the best build of the week that I'd realistically had, because it was a real nice all-rounder build that just about anyone should be able to try and have good success with. You can see the age of this stuff here because yeah, the game looks pretty old, and we're running Gorge over here, and if we go even deeper, you can see what the game looked like with my first ever Shaper kill. This is when Shaper just then came out. It was a very tough boss fight, and this is the first build that I had that I thought I could actually take this to Shaper and give him a run for his money. And yeah, I had really good DPS at the time, and then it actually let me take on and kill Shaper for the first time, which was pretty unheard of for a lot of builds. There weren't many that could do it, and it was a pretty challenging fight for its time. So Dreamfeather ST, at this point, Dreamfeathers are a pretty dead item. You can do armor stacking with the Replica Dreamfeathers, as far as I know. Still works pretty damn well, and one of the best builds, but super expensive and hard to make. But back then, regular Dreamfeather was completely slept on, pretty damn good when under the right settings, and it was using double dipping technology, which no longer exists. So you can't replicate something like that for that time. Essentially, you could like scale both the attack and the damage afterwards with various support gems. So that's what double dipping was, and that's been removed since a long time ago. But extremely good build for back then. One of my most successful ever in the in the sphere of when it was made, and I'm pretty proud of that one. I feel like for this one, it's going to be hard to understand what the fuck's going on, but it is cast on crit, detonate dead, and volatile dead. Now, before you groan and go, oh, detonate dead, this is before it was actually popular, and I had a large hand in popularizing the cast on crit variant of attaching volatile dead and detonate dead and desecrate to make an absolutely glorious clusterfuck of all kinds of bullshit. I was utilizing a cast on crit sword, shaper sword. Those weren't in existence back then. They weren't popular. No one was using them. And then we decided to kind of go for a craft on one of these and have a built-in cast on crit as a 7th link. And also utilized one of my skill slots for Desecrate Spam, which seemed very inefficient and very stupid, and then also had 2 skills that were getting procced in both Volatile Dead and Detonate Dead. Once again, at the time, seemed very inefficient and stupid to do, but once I combined all of that and then scaled some minion life, not minion, corpse life, a lot of damage just as generic damage as a necromancer, and then scaled kind of all kinds of life stacking. As a necromancer, this was pretty much one of the only real necromancer builds that I'd done, non-summoner. It became an extremely powerful and probably the most powerful cast on crit build I'd ever done to that point. It became just kind of iconic in its own way because I am pretty sure, from my memory, I was one of the first, if not the first person to attach all of this sort of shit to cast on crit in a world where everyone was doing Spell Slinger with Volatile Dead because it was just so much more smooth and made more sense. So everyone is Spell Slinging with this sort of shit, and I'm like, what if I Cyclone cast on crit it with a 2-handed sword? We've got the 2-handed sword witch animation where she's holding it by her side, so that was super insane as well. And it was just a build that had enormous amounts of damage, enormous amounts of fun because of all the dumb shit that was happening on the screen. And then it paved the way for many more cast on crit Detonate Deads and Volatile Deads that I did in the future, as Poison, as Bow, as Spectral Throw, all kinds of shit. So it was a very fun, powerful, and innovative build for its time. Yeah, just definitely one of the iconics, even though it might not be, super iconic in its own right. What it did from other builds and what it did at the time was just insane. Next up is, I think, to this day, still the video of mine that has the most views I've ever had, 600,000, something like that. And that is Bino's Blade Flurry Assassin. Assassin. Basically what happened is Blade Flurry came onto the scene and it was a brand new skill. And no one had ever really, seen it before, anything quite like it. It was very fun. It had a lot of flavor. It had some channels, some blades that were being thrown out. And I combined it with Assassin and with Bino's Kitchen Knife to make this poison thing that did some kind of prolift, but also just kind of hit hard, I think, at the time. Yeah, and it was very budget. It looked very fun. It looked very flashy compared to anything else that PoE had at the time. And it just really resonated with everyone because it was one of the first real Blade Flurry builds, guides that anyone could go out there and follow. And since it was such a cool skill, everyone wanted to try it. A lot of people flocked to my video and to my guide and then tried to remake it and had some pretty good success as well. Bino's wasn't too utilized at the time, I don't think, so that I was kind of popularizing that at the same time. Yeah, it was just a wildly successful build and hugely fun first example of Blade Flurry. At this stage, you would look at it and think nothing innovative at all, but no one really knew how to make builds back then or knew how to combo certain things or how to scale certain things. So Blade Flurry, while it looked cool, not too many people knew what to do with it. And then I made this sort of assassin build and it really took off. It really helped pave the way for future Blade Flurry builds in very different formats. Yeah, once again, another Assassin build. Assassins were actually pretty damn good throughout most of Path of Exile's history because it was tough to actually get a lot of crit into builds. An Assassin would let you do that pretty comfortably. Nowadays, when you can get a lot of crit almost everywhere, Assassin doesn't really have that same niche that it used to, and also it's gone through some buffs and nerfs over the years. Still one of my most popular videos ever, and it always kind of surprised me because I didn't think it was anything too next level. It was just, I kind of got in on the ground floor of a skill that not too many people really knew what to do with, but it looked super cool. Next one, Flashbang Warning, was one of the most popular builds I did when it came out, just purely for the visual and for the absolute madness that it could show off that could be done in Path of Exile. And that is Ice Spear Totems. I do believe I was one of the first to put Ice Spear and totems together and have it be pretty good. Like some people maybe put something like that together before, but it wasn't really very good. Whereas in this case, I comboed it with a Deadeye, which was pretty crazy because you're on the other side of the passive tree and it's super hard to go all the way over and make an efficient and good build with that kind of sort of pathing, that kind of scaling. But we made it work, and it was an insanely fun build that went really hard. I can't remember if I did it as a starter or not, but it may have been a starter. And basically, it just, yeah, it really went super far with its ability to be pretty defensive, once again, as a totem character, to clear really well because we had Snake Pit plus chain technology, so a couple of chains, and we'd eliminate the way that it pierces instead in replacing it with chain, and then we could have a huge single target by scaling lots of projectiles. I was pretty much one of the first people here to showcase like Sniper's Mark being busted as well. Not too many people were aware of what Sniper's Mark was doing for projectile skills at the time when it got changed. And yeah, it took off as a very successful build that a lot of people wanted to play and recreate the kind of madness of. It also paved the way for a few other Ice Spear builds that I'd done since then for cast on crit, for self-cast. Self-cast Deadeye Ice Spear as a starter was one of my more popular ones as well, and one that I did that was one of my more successful ones for a starter that really took me through to end game. And these builds were really good on budgets, but could also scale really high once you invested more into them. I loved Ice Spear. I still love Ice Spear. It's just, it got a bit more popular, and you know, I played it in many different ways, so there was less and less reason to keep coming back to it. But Ice Spear is still one of the best skills to come back to this day, and I still absolutely love the Ice Spear totems combined with Deadeye that was pretty damn hipster at the time. We then come upon what was pretty much my most iconic build, but not quite. Veterans of the stream, real veterans of the stream and channel, will remember 10 years ago the Fakener build. It was one of the strongest builds I'd made for the time, for what it was doing at the time comparatively, by far ever, and it also kind of put me on the map. There were two builds that really put me on the map, and the other one is the one I'll be talking about next, but one of the ones was Fakener. Fakener came about as a build that was an answer to Mjolnir. Mjolnir is the lightning mace that lets you use a skill, and people utilize that one after a bunch of trial and error with discharge, as well as with arc. The more popular versions were with arc, but it was extremely expensive. We're talking like in a world where most of us couldn't get more than a few exalts at a time, it was something like 40 exalts, and only the truly rich would ever use something like Mjolnir, so the rest of us just got to miss out, and that's all there was to it, until I came up with the build Fakener. So it was a fake Mjolnir build, and it utilized just a whole bunch of cast on crit and a Vaal's chest to get a lot of charges really quick, and then discharge them with cast on crit. So instead of utilizing like Mjolnir and the cast technology with, I think it was Ramirez Banquet Ring at the time, I instead combined some really unused technology in the form of like Vaal's Devotion Amulet, which came about later, and then cast on crit and capping like accuracy and attack speed to create basically a fake version of that build. It might not seem super innovative at this point, but back then, no one had done this. No one knew how to do this. There's no precedent for this type of thing to like scale accuracy, attack speed, crit, damage for your actual spells themselves. Like when you don't know that those things are possible, it's really hard to come up with this shit. Now that you know these things are possible, there's precedence for it. It's like easier to replicate and make your own versions of this type of shit. So it was a build that really took off and made me a bit more popular amongst the community because it was some huge amount of power you could have in a build that could replicate something that was really expensive, but we could do it on a very much more realistic budget. It was also one of my more iconic sort of things because it was the first video I think I took where I was just shirtless, because this is how I just, chill at home. I'm just sitting around shirtless, and I didn't really care at the time. I'm just like, whatever, I'll just post a clip with, shirtless. And that's why a lot of people think that I used to stream shirtless. They were just like, oh, I miss when Mather was shirtless. I never streamed shirtless like that. I just made a couple of videos like that, and they got a bit confused in their head thinking, oh, he used to stream shirtless too. And then in this video, I showcased that Fakener was so strong, the interaction was so strong, that I could use level 1 discharge to get away with killing and clearing high-end maps, which at the time I think was level 60, 78 maps, 76, 78 maps. And that was pretty unheard of. Like, even clearing these high tier maps was hard, and I could do it off of a level 1 gem. So it really showcased the power of the build. Still by far one of my most iconic builds, and people ask me to bring it back and stuff. And it's just hard to do. Basically, discharge is shit compared to what it used to be through many different nerfs and changes, and it's just comparatively speaking not as powerful as it once was. Discharge back in its day was like a skill that would deal this much freaking damage compared to everything else, but it was super hard to use. Whereas nowadays, it's still pretty hard to use, but it's going to deal like similar to a lot of other skills, which is why it's kind of dead at the moment. And then you can't talk iconic Mathel builds without, you guessed it, Elemental Buzzsaw. Basically, the build that let me have a career to this day, and why I am anyone and why anyone knows me in the Path of Exile community at all. Maybe I'm going to actually show some Elemental Buzzsaw here. There you go. What ended up happening was Spectral Throw showed up into existence at some point. Look at that old passive tree. My God. And a lot of traveling. Spectral Show showed up into existence, and let's go to the other video, I reckon, at this point. And it was a new skill. It was on a Scion. Not too many people knew what to do with it, and it was used quite a lot for leveling and somewhat for endgame, but no one made good builds with it. Like, it was used for mostly two-handed maces or swords, something like that. And, some streamers used it, and they made okay builds with it, and it was kind of fun, but it wasn't really anything that good. And then I really liked Spectral Throw as well, and I wanted to try and, do something with it. And I made some of those builds, and they were kind of mediocre. But then I really tried to think of how I could combine Spectral Throw with something else to make it truly good. And that's when fast attacking and elemental damage came into play. Now, like I said, it's obvious when it's obvious, but at the time, it was not obvious. People did not know that elemental damage plus fast attacking equals good scaling. So I combined what I could find as the fastest weapon possible. I went non-crit. I stacked a lot of auras, as many as I could, and as much flat elemental damage as I could, and then attacked with Spectral Throw pretty fast, and it turned into a real build. It turned into a build that no one had ever seen for Spectral Throw before. It was very budget friendly, so it used some items that no one had ever looked at in the form of Lightning Coil. So that was an item that no one was using and didn't think was any good. And then, Spectral Throw, a skill that everyone kind of liked, but didn't really know what to do with in any sort of good fashion. And then, of course, the MTX came out, which is this one here, Seraph Spectral Throw. I bought it, and then I said that it looked kind of like a buzzsaw, and thus I called my build Elemental Buzzsaw. To this day, still one of the nicest MTX out there. When I had the podcast with Ziz and Chris Wilson at some point, we asked how much, if he can look up how much money Spectral Throw MTX Buzzsaw or Seraph Spectral Throw had made. He said by that point it made $800,000 for the, he could just look it up real quick. He said, yep, that one is sold, made $800,000. And we agreed that I'm probably responsible for half of that. So still no commission check, unfortunately, but that's what I did for Spectral Throw and for GGG with this one. The other reason it was one of the most popular builds for me ever is because when Ambush League came out, that was one of our first leagues. I think it was Ambush League. It introduced this boss fight here, this entire zone, Atziri. And it was a big thing to try and be the first person to kill Atziri. And it was an unknown boss fight. We knew nothing about it. There was no, like, you know, teasers or some shit or like early accesses, nothing like that. It's just, here comes a big new challenging zone. Who's going to be the first to do it? There's some boss fights there. And when that launched, I was thinking, what build should I take to it? I think my elemental buzzsaw can take on anything that the game throws at it, so I'm going to make that. I played for about 4 or 5 days, got to like level 90 or so, tried the boss fight once, and with someone else that I was playing with at the time, we failed, and I thought, I reckon I can do it better alone. Went in after getting the pieces together, because it was hard to even put the map together. Put it together, went in alone and took it down, became world first in the Ambush League at the time to kill Atziri. So I claimed the first place prize. I was the first person to basically show off what the fight looked like and how it was done and stuff. And it was a difficult fight that required, you know, a pretty nice build. And there's even a thread that's still up there to this day of me getting the first one and showing off my absolute dog shit gear, which for the time was actually pretty good. What happened was, like, it came out, people tried it on standard with some really high life builds and, like, you know, flame blasts or righteous fires, something like that, and they were dying, and they're like, this Atziri fight is absolutely insane. It's crazy to expect anyone to be able to do this. And then I came along and did it with this humble gear on a new league, and everyone's like, well, hold on, maybe you're supposed to dodge some of those attacks, and maybe you're supposed to do the mechanics and shit. And once again, it kind of put me on the map because of that, and then people could start killing Atziri and showing off other things to do with that. So it was a crazy time for me. It was the first build that ever gave me any sort of popularity, because then people wanted to follow this build, and they're just like, oh shit, this guy made a buzzsaw, who is he? Let's start following this guy. Maybe he's going to put out other builds. And that's when I realized, oh man, maybe I should make more builds and people would want to follow these. So I think it's pretty much the most iconic build I've ever had. Yeah, so pretty crazy stuff there. I do want to do some honorable mentions though as well. Real quick, we'll try and go over them, because I played a lot of builds, and some I think like are worth just going, oh, that one was also pretty cool. Not quite iconic, but it is worth mentioning as something in my category, in my folder, repertoire, whatever. The first one on that list is Shaper build. So MTX came out every now and again, and you know, sometimes you'd look at an MTX and you go, man, I really want to do something with that. And this one had Scorching Ray in Shaper beam form. By that point, we already had Frost bolts that had like Shaper balls happening. And then I thought to myself, how can I possibly combine this shit to become the Shaper myself? So through all that, I made some kind of Ignite-based Elementalist that uses Scorching Ray to apply a debuff, cast while channeling with Frostbolt, and then I became the Shaper. I'm doing these, you know, beams and throwing out these balls everywhere, and it became the Shaper build. It wasn't anything crazy because it's inefficient as fuck to be comboing some of this stuff together, but it worked. It was a nice enough build. It had really good visuals, and it gave some popularity because of that as well. So it's kind of an honorable mention in that way, because it wasn't a super good build, but it was, you know, a good example of creativity and what you can do inspired by MTX. Another one I want to bring up, it's nothing crazy itself as a build, but what it went through may be somewhat memorable to some people. It is a Trickster Burning Arrow character that I think had a Storm Cloud, Stormfire. You can see green from the Katarina Flask, which was really cool. It's like a bugged interaction. And it's an Ignite Burning Arrow build that was pretty good for what it was. It did really good things. But the special thing about it was it came across an all fight in Delve, one of the first times I really, you know, came across many alls, and it was a particularly challenging all fight, and I wanted to fight it just completely as my character was over and over again until I beat him. In the end, this character had 500 deaths, just purely like 3 days of bashing my head against an all, and it was right at the end of the league. And he won. I did not end up killing him. The character had 500 deaths or so. The league ran out of time and I didn't get the kill. So it was a pretty like kind of iconic moment for my stream because it was just a lot of fun bashing my head against an all like that. And yeah, it was a really like cool moment for us to go through. Another one I think deserves some honorable mentions is Face Breaker Crit Ice Crash one-shotting action. It wasn't a build anyone should really copy because it is clumsy as fuck and it was hard to like kind of build, hard to, you know, pull off. But it was super fun to like have these clips and these moments where I built an Inquisitor to just one-shot everything. It was winding up like big attacks. It was using certain war cries and stuff. And then the end result was that I was one-shotting bosses that we didn't know were one-shottable. And it was a lot of fucking fun. Ice Crash, Face Breakers, Inquisitor, like lots of rage, berserking, war cries, and yeah, we were pulling off something like I think average 40 million crits, and then the high roll could be something like 60, 70 million. So that led to one-shotting a lot of bosses, even the highest end bosses like I think Cirrus and stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, a lot of fun, but not really a great build. Just a good example of some of the dumb shit you can do in PoE. And then you can't mention dumb shit in PoE without lastly bringing up what I dubbed the Cumstorm build. Once again, inspired by MTX, Exsanguinate came out with an MTX that had Mercurial, they called it, which, you know, kind of like Mercury or some shit. But when you used it and just attacked with it, not maybe in this lighting necessarily, if we can find better lighting, when you used it, it kind of just looked like a sploosh of cum. And I combined the Exsanguinate with Cyclone and Castwell Channeling, and then once you spun in a circle, it just went everywhere, and I dubbed it Cumstorm. And it's kind of iconic and worth an honorable mention because I think it is one of the most popular clips I've had that on Twitch that just went everywhere instead of just the PoE community. Like, it was linked in other places, and people just saw me messing around with some skill that I called Cumstorm. So it's pretty iconic for that and pretty meme worthy for that and worth mentioning. Pretty good build as well, actually. It was like a good starting character and really fun to go through. So with that in the background, fuck it, not in the background, we'll just call it that. Yeah, that is just some of the most iconic moments and builds from me from PoE and some history of PoE as well and my channel. Hopefully that was some fun and something worth watching. I don't know if you want me to do these types of videos in the future. I'm willing to also let you guys in the comments just mention any sort of iconic builds you think I missed or that were most iconic for you that was kind of a shame I didn't mention, because there's a lot and I could have mentioned a good few more, but I have to, you know, squeeze something down here for the video so that we can make not the longest video ever. But I absolutely want to hear from you guys as well as to what you think might be my most iconic builds, any that I missed out on. But hopefully that was a good look back at some of my builds and some of history, and it was a good fun watch. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.